Okay, welcome back to members of 121 Community Church in Grapevine, Texas, in our ongoing study in Paul and the Faithfulness of God by N.T. Wright. We're going to look at a great recall triad for pages 510 to 530. We're going to take a look at the three dual identities that we can now summarize after completing part 1 and part 2 of Professor Wright's book. Let's begin by taking a look at block 1. We're going to take a look at Israel's dual identity. In Romans 7:14 through 23, the Torah has revealed Israel to be both the people of God and the people of God's promise, and still in Adam, still as transgressors. In Galatians 2:18, Paul labels Israel as perabates, transgressors. In Romans 7:24, Israel in the flesh is situated in the lament of elongated exile, of Roman oppression. In Romans 8:3, the Israel's sin of turning inward instead of being the light of the world has resulted in the righteousness of Torah becoming adonetas, without voice. So Israel is given a dual identity, but if we look at block 2, Paul also has a dual identity, from Saul of Jewish apocalyptic to Paul of eschatological turn. That's the way that Professor Wright labels it. It's Paul of eschatological turn. Of the three moments of Paul's renewal after Damascus, first, the decisive action of Christ in crucifixion and resurrection has truly fulfilled Israel's vocation. Second, the decisive messianic story of Christ has redeemed the Saul who was caught between the enabling Torah and the judgment of Torah. And third, the decisive renewal moment of encountering the resurrected Christ on the Damascus Road and Saul's baptism has resulted in Paul's apostolic commission. For Paul, the apocalyptic markers of cross and resurrection have inaugurated Paul's 180-degree eschatological turn of understanding from temple to ecclesia, church of called out ones. Paul's new messianic story in Christ fulfills both Israel's story and the God in creation narrative both. So, Professor Wright's telling us that within Paul's theology, we get a look at Israel's dual identity, we get a look at Paul's dual identity, and now in block 3, we also get a look at creation's dual identity, from present evil age to coming apocalyptic age. In Galatians 1:3 through 5, Christ has rescued us from the present evil age. In Galatians 3:10 through 14, this is done by means of Christ himself becoming a curse for our deliverance from the curse of the law. The concept of curse takes up Israel's elongated exile under Roman oppression and Saul's sin as Pharisee, who was actually practicing sacred violence. So we get tremendous teaching here in understanding that Israel had a dual identity. They, through their turning inward on themselves and not becoming the light of the world, they did further accent the fact that they are still transgressors in Adam, like all humanity. But they were still God's people. He would fulfill his promise, but he would fulfill it in an unexpected way. So Israel in the flesh was caught in this lament of elongated exile under Rome. But Paul also had a dual identity himself. He was Saul, the Shammai Pharisee who practiced sacred violence. He began as a Hillel, but he moved on to the Shammai who practiced a sacred violence. He persecuted Christians with that conviction of a Shammai Pharisee. But he transitioned to becoming Paul of the eschatological turn, which is a 180-degree eschatological turn, because he encountered the resurrected Christ and he took up the apocalyptic markers of cross and resurrection, which changed his life and taught him that the true temple is the ecclesia, called out ones of Christ. So the temple made with hands no longer had its privilege as far as Paul was concerned. Temple became the ecclesia, called out ones of Jesus Christ. And then the creation itself had a dual identity also. Because the Jewish Pharisees did understand that they were living in the present evil age. They were looking forward to the Jewish apocalyptic of the coming apocalyptic age. For Paul, that happened through the resurrected Christ himself, because he became a curse for our deliverance from curse. The coming apocalyptic age has been inaugurated in Jesus Christ. And that gives Paul victory over elongated exile. That gives Saul, the Pharisee, victory at a personal level as well. Tremendous teaching here by Professor Wright, and it's just kind of an encapsulated summary position to look at after we've gone through all of Part 1 and all of Part 2. Professor Wright is getting us ready for Part 3 of his major work, but we are certainly thankful for this lesson from page 510 to 530. That'll wrap up a recall triad. We'll pick up next time on page 531.